Hello and thanks for joining us from our studios in Israel. I'm Aaron Porras, here with ILTV's Morning Briefing. Christmas festivities are in full swing here in the Holy Land. As usual, tourists have arrived in droves to visit some of the holiest Christian sites in the world. But Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu is already thinking ahead to next year. He's just offered to take pilgrims on a personalized tour of Jerusalem in 2018. The Prime Minister also goes on to suggest even more Israeli sites where visitors can retrace Jesus' footsteps, like the Sea of Galilee, where the Jesus boat is on permanent display. As per tradition, Jerusalem's Latin Patriarch Pier Battista Pizzaballa has arrived in the West Bank city of Bethlehem as well. The Latin Patriarch's march through Bethlehem was met with the typical Christian fanfare as he entered the Holy Nativity Church to lead the midnight and morning Christmas Mass. Unfortunately, another Christmas tradition is the clashing of Palestinians and Israeli troops in Bethlehem. But tourists still flock to the city anyway to be near the place where Jesus is believed to have been born. Looks like nothing slows down Christmas spirit. Following the United States' example, Guatemala has just announced that it will follow suit and move its foreign embassy from Herzliya to Jerusalem. Israeli leaders have praised the news, saying that it takes, quote, immense guts for a small country like Guatemala to stand up for justice like this. Relations have been warming between Israel and Latin America over the years, and we saw that reflected in the UN vote at the General Assembly earlier this week. Though the resolution denouncing President Trump's decision to recognize Jerusalem as Israel's capital was passed with a crushing majority, the countries that sided with Israel says a lot about Israel's growing foreign relations. After Trump first made the announcement, Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu predicted more countries would follow that example soon, and it looks like Guatemala is the first. On the heels of that UN vote, which saw 128 countries voting against President Trump's decision, the United Nations has just announced it has slashed its yearly budget by $285 million. The U.S. has applauded this as, quote, a step in the right direction, end quote, which makes sense considering the United States is the single largest contributor to the international body. A new report claims that recently recorded trends show young ultra-Orthodox Jews are increasingly putting off marriage, potentially leading to a plateau, if not even a drop, in the community's up until now increasing birth rate. According to the data, the percentage of single ultra-Orthodox or Haredi Jews in their 20s in Israel has risen from 29% to 32% over the last decade, but those numbers become a lot more concerning when looking at the sexes separately. The percentage of single Haredi women in their 20s has risen from 20 to 33%, while single men only rose from 29% to 32%. With this new data in mind, population models previously predicted by the Israel Democracy Institute may need a revision. The institute currently anticipates the ultra-Orthodox community rising from 12% today to nearly 30% by 2060, but that remains to be seen. As for the reason for the delay in marriages, no one source has been identified, but the pursuit of higher education and use of technology has been largely attributed. Once again, Israeli players have been spurned from the world of competitive games and sports, but this time it's not in soccer or judo, but chess. According to the vice president of the World Chess Federation, 7 Israeli chess players have now been denied visas to Saudi Arabia to compete in the championships being hosted there. The tournament takes place between December 26th and 30th, but there's no hope that the Israeli delegation will be there, as Saudi Arabia hasn't and doesn't formally recognize Israel. Regardless of the exclusion, the tournament is set to go on as planned. Saudi officials could not be reached for comment on the matter. The Israelis, on the other hand, had plenty to say. Lior Eisenberg, the spokesman for the Israeli Chess Federation, said they were still trying to find a way into the competition, and that, quote, the event isn't a world championship if they prevent chess players from several countries from taking part, end quote. If nothing is done, Eisenberg said that there could be legal action taken against the World Chess Federation, or even maybe a separate tournament altogether held for the excluded participants. Speaking at his weekly Sunday cabinet meeting, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has just announced that the ministers have approved and are moving forward with their long-awaited agreement to boost the benefits for disabled Israelis. The agreement now just has to be accepted either by the Knesset Finance Committee or passed as law in the plenum. If finalized, 1.5 billion shekels, or about $430 million, would then be added to the pool of financial subsidies paying out to roughly 200,000 citizens. The added payments, which comprise of the first step in several raises, could take effect as soon as January 1st. Netanyahu calls the proposal, quote, a big step and a real consideration for a needy population that is deserving of this aid, end quote. According to media reports, Finance Ministry officials are already writing a bill to push in the plenum floor to establish the incremental raises as law. All that is left to do now is wait for the results of the 3 Knesset votes, the first of which is set to take place later today. That's all for now. I'm Aaron Porras, and see you later with our main daily broadcast from Israel at 2 p.m. Eastern Time.